Hello, my name is Mark. Welcome to Mark Thought About It. So, for today's topic, I wanted to look at something that I made up as a list. And I want to talk about NFL running backs. Now, normally, when you do a list of NFL running backs, you do it as an individual. You'll have the top names that are always used. You know, you got like your Jim Brown, your Walter Payton, and your Barry Sanders and a couple other names that'll be mentioned constantly. But what I want to do in this list, I want to make this a list with a twist. And the twist being, I want to speak from it as a team organizational set of running backs. What NFL team in its history has had the best running backs in their organization? Now, a couple of things can get quirky in this because you have situations where some players play for more than one team. But basically, you'll see exactly what I'm saying. And one of the better examples, and I'm not about to go through every NFL team with this list. I'm just going to list the top five or so. So, in doing so, it may look like I'm overlooking some of the great running backs in history, but I'm not. I'm just looking at it from a team aspect. So, with that being said, the best examples I can give you is this: when you look like a team like the Cleveland Browns, who later became the Baltimore Ravens, and you have in your history Jim Brown and Jamal Lewis. When you look at my Chicago Bears, and you see that they had Gale Sayers and Walter Payton, even someone like the Detroit Lions, who had Billy Sims and Barry Sanders. But if you notice, I'm only naming two from an organization when I do so. So they wouldn't make it in this top of my list. I also will have it looked at where when you see the Raiders, you're thinking about Marcus Allen and Bo Jackson. The Steelers with Franco Harris and Jerome Bettis. Or even the Buffalo Bills, who had O.J. Simpson and Thurman Thomas. 49ers with Roger Craig and Frank Gore. So I'm going to take off with the list from ones of organizations that had multiple groundbreaking or even Hall of Fame running backs. Starting with the Houston Oilers, who later on became the Tennessee Titans. And you have names like Earl Campbell, Eddie George, and Chris Johnson. Now, if you're a football fan, you know all about Earl Campbell. I shouldn't have to explain that. Eddie George is more current and recent. Some of y'all might be slipping on Chris Johnson. Chris Johnson was an amazing running back for them. He had six different 1,000 rushing yard seasons. And he also, in 2004, ended up rushing for more than 2,000 yards. There's a mythical number that goes with running backs in the NFL with that number 2,000. There's only a handful of running backs in the history of the league that has rushed for 2,000 yards or more. And one of the names that's probably going to always be overlooked is Chris Johnson. So that's why I wanted to give him his props. Next on my list is what I was speaking of when I said their quirkiness. When I said that somebody could play for one team and play for another and be on the list, this happened twice with these two teams. So you look at the Rams. The Rams were in LA. They were the Los Angeles Rams. Then they went to St. Louis, came back to LA. But they had the running back by the name of Eric Dickerson. If you are a football fan, you know that Eric Dickerson was amazing. He had 1,000 rushing yard seasons. And in 1984, he rushed for 2,105 yards. He stood straight up, knees high, run you down, run you over. The reason why I was speaking about Eric Dickerson was He started off with the Rams, and he eventually came and played with the Colts. And that's what I meant about playing with two different teams. But the quirkiness is the fact that also Marshall Faulk played for the Colts and then later on played for the Rams. So both of them played with both of those teams at different times. Marshall Faulk, his team with the Rams, they won the Super Bowl in 2000, and he was named the Super Bowl MVP. And he was also made it into the Hall of Fame as well. So the Rams, like I said, you got Eric Dickerson, you got Marshall Faulk, and you have Steven Jackson, another very dominant running back. That man was cold. And then I could flip right there to the Colts immediately and put Eric Dickerson's name with the Colts. I could put Marshall Faulk's name with the Colts. But also, the Colts had Edgerrin James, another great running back. So, Colts and Rams about breaking even with some of the same players even. Now, the Cowboys. A lot of people don't like the Cowboys. I can't say I'm a big fan of them either, but I do recognize, in fairness, the running backs they had were amazing. They had Tony Dorsett, they had Herschel Walker, they had Emmitt Smith. They had a great amount of running backs in their history, even though you can go back even further in the 70s, they had pretty good running backs too, but they did a lot of committee running back in as well back at that time. But who I list as the most dominant history of running backs in the NFL, it might be a history lesson for some of y'all because I'm going to bring up the most obvious name, and that's Marshawn Lynch. Beast mode. Marshawn Lynch in Seattle, he got six different 1,000 rushing yards seasons in his history. He got a Super Bowl with Seattle. And for those who got it fresh in your memory, they should have had two Super Bowls. Everybody says if you turn around and you hand Marshawn Lynch the ball at the 1 yard line, beast mode is going to get you that score and you're going to win the game. They decided to throw the ball and it was picked off in the end zone, and the Patriots ended up winning that Super Bowl. But back to the subject that we're talking about, Marshawn Lynch was very dominant and a great running back for Seattle, as well as Shaun Alexander. Shaun Alexander was a very good running back. He was hard to tackle. He was running through people, and he was the MVP of the league in 2005. He rushed for 27 touchdowns in that season, which is why you can easily see that he was the MVP. But the star of their franchise, to me, was the running back by the name of Ricky Watters. Oh, I used to love to see Ricky Watters play. Ricky Watters at one time played for the 49ers. Another time he played for the Eagles. But when he was with Seattle, he was doing things. He was one of those that had six 1,000-yard seasons as well. But I do remember this part right here. In a playoff game, and I do believe it was against the Giants, Ricky Watters scored 5 touchdowns by himself in a playoff game. Now, it's not a record because when Gale Sayers was playing for the Bears in the 60s, he got 6 touchdowns, but it was regular season. But in a playoff game, 5 touchdowns by himself was amazing. So I think about just how dominant Seattle's running backs was. Beast mode, physical. Shaun Alexander, physical. Ricky Watters wasn't playing with nobody. So that's my list right there, y'all. I made this one short and sweet. I got to really thinking about that. For a lot of times, we always want to give the individual running backs their props, and this overlooks the fact that how many of them played on what team. So that's why I wanted to break it down from that way. I hope you like the list and what I came up in this content right here. Once again, like I said, I like doing these things, and I hope that you all have a wonderful day. And I'll close this out with bye bye.